So what we should be thinking about at this point is now we have sort of like a basic outline of our game, right? We know how the gameplay works and all that stuff. So now we really should be thinking about a general flow of the game, like what we want the character to do. So like character is gonna start here, it's gonna go ahead like around there. I hope you guys can see my cursor correctly, cursor like property. But like basically we want the character to like go here. He's gonna probably gonna like fight an enemy right there, and also then like the character would have two choices, either to like go up there, try to go up there, or like go down from this path right here, right? So we really want to sort of create a path for the character to like sort of follow and basically continue the game. So what I'm going to do is I want to basically have these two paths, both of these parts available. And the way we're going to do that is that basically if the character goes down here, he should have the option of, essentially we should add like some assets like about here, somewhere about here, which would allow it to like climb up to sort of this like level, this upper level right here. And then when he's at this upper level, he should have an option of either going to the right side, which would have nothing, we would just have like a dead end sort of there, or he would have the option of going left, where our game would sort of continue, right? So we would probably just move around along like this area and move here, and then around here you should have another sort of obstacle and maybe another enemy as well, if we want to have two enemies. And then he should have a few obstacles there, do some parkour and all that stuff, and then he should like probably go around that side, and the spaceship should be around somewhere around here at this point. So just a rough planning of the game. You should have like an outline of the game ready. Preferably you should have an outline ready on paper, or like something like somewhere written down. Right now, because I've made this game already, so I know sort of the outline that I want in my head. That's why I'm not really like doing any on paper planning. But like you ideally should have an idea of what kind of game you're trying to sort of build before you even start building the level. So but yeah, let's get started with this. So first thing I want to do is I want to add an obstacle somewhere around here, which is sort of going to be like traversable, which your character can essentially just jump over, just to sort of show off some of the jumping animations and all that stuff. I think they look really nice, so I want to sort of show them off. So if you go back to our asset zoo and go inside assets, you're gonna see if I just double click these, it's gonna essentially just focus on them. You're gonna notice that we essentially on purpose we left some of these like we didn't delete some of these, and the reason for that was because we want to add these now to our game. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this one. So just select this, hold alt on your keyboard, and just drag it like that, creating a copy of it. And I'm just going to essentially just drag this all the way there. And now I'm going to double click it again to basically go back to the position where it is. And now we can just place it wherever we want to sort of build a level. And good thing about Megascan's assets, which these are Megascan's assets, by the way. Good thing about them is that they really sort of blend in pretty well with all the other assets. Like I can just essentially choose to place them anywhere I want, and it would still look like it belongs there. So that's pretty nice about this environment. So I want to have like a flat side which the player can sort of jump over. I think this side looks pretty flat, something like this. So if I just place it right here, you're gonna see that we have sort of this brick wall kind of thing, or not a brick wall, this rock kind of thing which you can sort of jump over. And I'm gonna be duplicating this again like that, and maybe increasing the scale a little bit, something like that, and then just like placing it here, just to add like some like non-uniformity, because obviously these are natural assets and natural like rocks and all that stuff, and obviously nothing in the real world in nature is perfectly ideal or like perfectly symmetrical and all that stuff. So you want to sort of just add a slight bit of a size variation, rotation variation, all that kind of stuff, just to make it look more random. And I think these look very, very uniform right now, which is not something I want. So I'm definitely gonna consider rotating this, maybe something like that, a little bit like that. And I mean, level design is a whole nother course in and of itself, because it's like so vast, and like big game studios have like people whose entire job is to create levels. So again, I'm not expecting you guys to be like experts in this. I'm not an expert myself, but just like we just try to do like a good job of like making things look random enough so that they're they look like they are sort of just meant to be there. And also one problem that I'm noticing is that the transition from this sort of sand material, or like this material, to the rocks is not very seamless. It kind of looks like it's a little out of place. So what we can do, a very good option for us, is going to be to sort of just copy any of these assets, for example, like any of these rock assets, right? Select one of them, hold Alt on your keyboard and just duplicate it like that. Move it up a little bit, something like that. And just rotate it. Again, a lot of this is trial and error. I'm just like trying to sort of see if this is going to look good or not, because I don't really know, because I haven't tried it. Again, in your game as well, you're going to do a lot of trial and error, and I don't really think it looks that great. We could make it work, but I don't think it looks that great. So I'm just going to get rid of it. Instead, what we can do is we can maybe add some foliage there. So I don't think you guys have been introduced to the foliage mode. I'm pretty sure you guys are not. So let me just introduce you to that mode, and then we can sort of just cover adding foliage as well. So what you do is you click selection mode up here, and you can see that you have a bunch of different modes inside of Unreal Engine 5. So what we're interested in for now is going to be this foliage mode. And in this, because in this project we already have a bunch of plants, a bunch of different grass assets. So we already do have some grass in here which we can use. So what we're going to do is that we're going to select the first grass, shift select the last grass. Don't press caps lock, that was by accident, but just shift select the last one, and then just click the check mark on any of these to select all of them. Now if you don't have assets in this, you're going to want to import assets from Fab into Unreal Engine 5 first, and then you're going to see them in the foliage mode. If you don't see them, just browse over to wherever you have your assets and just drag them inside of the foliage collection. And now with all these assets selected, if I just move to my viewport, you're going to see that we have this purple sort of sphere, which you can use to paint foliage. So we can use our bracket keys on our keyboard or adjust this brush size thing to basically control the brush size of the brush. I'm going to make it like pretty small, something like that. And then you can also control the paint density and all that stuff, but we don't really want to do that right now. So if I just paint it like that, you're going to see that we have some foliage. However, this looks pretty fake in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the paint density a little bit. And also, I'm going to go down to basically your scaling. And then I'm also going to change the scaling to something like 0.5. And max is going to be something like 0.7. This is so that the size of the plants is essentially half to like 0.7 times the original size. And just to make sure that we have like pretty small plants. Something like that. And if I just add a bunch of these, I think they're pretty small, maybe not that small, maybe 1 and like 1.5. I think that's a more realistic sort of size. How about I increase the paint density a little bit and just add a little bit of plants to the edges, something like that. I think that looks pretty good. That looks pretty realistic. Now, obviously, if I was making an actual game, or if I was like, make like an actual project, I would definitely spend more time on this, just trying to like dial in the perfect amount of foliage and just make things look a lot better. But I think for now, for the purposes of this course, I think we should be good to go. One thing I am going to do is that I'm going to basically move this a little out just to make sure that the jumpable area or the traversable area is a little larger. So if I just play the game and I show you guys our current situation, that is going to be that if our player comes close to this, our main goal is that our player should sort of jump over this, right? You're going to notice one problem, and that is, if I get close to this and I jump, you can see that we can jump over it. However, the animation is not really being played. It's just playing the default jump animation, and it's not using the animation that is supposed to be played. If you remember from the initial project that I showed you, the animation in that project was really, really nice, right? So how exactly do we get that animation? It's going to involve a couple of steps, pretty easy steps, but it is a little extra work, just like, it's not as easy as just, dragging these assets and just, making them jumpable magically. You're going to have to like follow one more step for that. So for that, we're going to be right-clicking Unreal Engine and creating another instance of Unreal Engine in which we're going to basically open the same project that we did before, the game animation sample project. We're going to open that once again. So just right here, game animation sample project. I think this was the project that we used for this course. This is the initial one that I created before. So I'm just going to open this, double click that. If your computer is pretty slow, what I would recommend you to do is either just switch over to unlit mode, just so you can, save some resources. But you got to make sure that you have both of these instances of Unreal Engine open, because we're going to copy over an asset from there, which The easier way to do that would be having both of them open. So with this project open, if I just go ahead and play, you're going to see that we should have, if it's a 1 meter box, it should have, not this one, actually should have some animation like this, right? Like an animation which is basically not the same as the default animation. It should have these like cool looking animations, which we want, right? So how exactly do we get these animations? It's pretty simple. So we need these specific boxes, these traversable boxes, in order for us to have those animations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select any of these boxes, just select them and press Control C, or just select them and right click them and go to edit and copy. Now we're going to go back to our other project. I'm just going to switch over to lit mode just so we can see better. And here you can click anywhere essentially and just press Control V to copy it, to paste it. And now you're going to see it's going to be pasted right there. I'm going to be just dragging it back right here. Something like that. And now the main idea for this is that we want to sort of have this box placed over this asset, right? And set the visibility of this to be, we want to set this box to be invisible in the game. However, what our character is actually going to be jumping over is going to be this exact box, because there's some code in this box which is going to tell the character to use those animations when it's jumping over them. I know it's a little confusing. I know it doesn't make sense, but yeah, it's just something that we have to do for now, unfortunately. But yeah, we got to do that. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to place this box somewhere around there. And this is one of the things in Unreal Engine 5 which is kind of frustrating, but like, you know, in everything there's a there's sort of like a trade-off. So in this you get these amazing animations, but at the same time you also need to sort of deal with this. So I'm just going to be moving it a little back, something like that. You got to make sure that it intersects as little as possible. And for the most part, it should be bigger than your object. It shouldn't be smaller than it. So that is another problem that you have to sort of deal with. I'm going to have to turn off the snapping for scaling actually. And just make sure so that we can, you know, make some precise movements. So I think that should be a good shape for the box. What we can do is we can go ahead and play now to see if it works. If I go ahead, you can see that we can still see it. We're going to be fixing that in just a bit. But now if I jump over it, you're going to see that we're using the cool jump animation. You know, these animations are just like much better than just the default jump animation, which is just going to be this one. Yeah. So that's much better. And now all that there's left to do is basically select this, go inside your details panel with the selected, and just search for actor hidden, and just turn this on, actor hidden in game. If you just turn this on, it is still going to be visible in your viewport, but however, if you go ahead and play the game, you're not going to see it. And if you jump over it, you're going to be using those cool animations. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. And because I actually will have to increase the size of the box. My bad. I will have to increase the size of the box a little bit so that it's covering the whole rock, so that we can, even if we jump on it from the other side, if we're coming back for whatever reason, we should still be able to jump over it just fine. Something like that should be good. Just a little ahead, something like that. And I think we should be good. Maybe just move it a little, make it a little bigger, and then move it back like that. Perfect. So if we go ahead and click play again, just to make sure, and this is something you really want to do a lot in your games, just make sure to sort of keep playing again and again, just to sort of test out your objects. And again, what this testing is going to do is that it's going to allow you to find problems and glitches, just like this one. So you can see that the rock is slightly above the ground. It's not flushed completely, which is definitely a problem that we need to fix. So I'm just going to press escape to get out of the game. And this one, I'm just going to select this box and click this eye icon right here to hide it. And what we can do is we can essentially just duplicate this, move it down, something like that. And then we can just move it out a little bit, something like that. Just a tad like that, just so we can cover those, you know, areas where it's sort of not flush in the ground. Or we can delete this, and another, I think, easier option for this would be just to scale it up in this axis. And then again, move it slightly down. Just like that. And now we are going to have to go back to this level, this sort of the traversable box, and just adjust the size of that again as well. I know it's a little frustrating, but it is what it is. And I really hope Unreal Engine sort of has a better way of doing this, but for now, I think this is the only way that we have, or the only way that I am aware of. If you guys find any other way, be sure to let me know. Um, because really, with these courses, I've learned a lot with these courses as well, as I'm like sort of researching for these, as I'm sort of preparing for these courses. I find a lot of different things that I personally didn't know before. So it's a good experience for me as well, a good learning experience for me as well. So I'm just going to be placing this right there because just, cover some of the empty areas. And I think we should be good to go with this first obstacle. So now that you know how to create an obstacle, creating the other ones is going to be super easy. So just making sure everything works as expected, and it does. Let's go from this side as well. Perfecto. So now we can just essentially just even copy this and just duplicate it on different places just to create more obstacles, which is something I am going to do in just a bit. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to be selecting maybe this asset, the one below it, and just a bunch of these like that, and just move them to make sure that everything is selected. Press Ctrl Z to undo them, obviously, and then we can hold Alt on our keyboard and just move them. So the reason why I moved them without holding Alt before was just to make sure that, we had everything selected. So once we confirmed that, then we were like, okay. But yeah, so I'm just gonna move this up like there. Place it somewhere around here. And then basically just move it right here. Perfect. So again, make sure everything is flushed in the ground, just like that. This part is not, so I'm just going to move it a little down, something like that. And there you go. We have another obstacle. Obviously, we can move past this obstacle. So for that, what we're going to do is that we're probably going to like duplicate this a couple of times. And we can do this, or I'm just going to undo this. We're going to be dealing with this later on. Right now, we just have this sort of basic obstacle. We can tweak this later on. All right, so once our player goes around here, what we can do is that we can basically just have him like go over to this side maybe, and then maybe just move some of these a little down just to make it a little easier for the player to sort of jump over them. This rock I'm going to delete, and you can see that this sort of like makes like a natural path. Like you jump over this and you go here, and then you jump over that, and then you're good to go. And maybe even this one as well, I'm going to delete that. Or maybe not delete that. Maybe just move it across slightly, because we really do want to fill that area. We don't want to have any empty holes. Something like that should be good. And so if you just duplicate this traversable box and place it right here, we can essentially just place this over all the areas that need to be sort of jumped over or, traversed over in the game. Again, rotate this. And it's just a matter of placing these boxes like as accurately as you can over all these assets. Again, they're not going to be perfect. That's for sure. But, we're just going to have to like try to like, find the best possible place from the options that we have. Something like that should be good. And maybe a little higher because it is intersecting quite a bit. And then after this, we are going to duplicate this up again like that, and we can switch over to object coordinates as well, just to make sure that we can move them properly and place them right there, and also just move them slightly higher as well, just like that. So now if you just go back in our just play our game, and I sprint over to that area, you're gonna see that we have these rocks right here. You can jump over these rocks, and then this one. Perfect. I think that looks really nice. So if I just do that again, you can see that jump over this and you jump over this. Perfect. And then you should be able to jump over this, but I think these are too large, so we're probably gonna have to see. We are probably gonna have to just move this down a little bit. Or maybe what we can do is we can try to see if our player can just jump directly over these. I'm not sure if the what do you call it? If the character is going to be able to jump over something this high, but we can obviously try. Just move it right there. Not rotate. Just scale it up like that. Scale it up in this axis as well. And then obviously move this across. Maybe place it somewhere like here, where it's like, you know, a little more flat. Because obviously we want to be able to like sort of just jump over like flat areas and not just anywhere, because that's not realistic. Or maybe you can add like multiple layers of you know, jumping multiple layers of obstacles, so like something like that, and then move this a little back and then move it here as well. Let's see if this works. I haven't tried it myself personally, so I'm just gonna get to know with you guys. Again, as you can see, this whole process is full of trial and error, and there's a lot of really a lot of trial and error. That's the main thing in this game development. As a whole is full of, you know, trial and error. You just want to like try out different things and see what works and what doesn't. And as you can see, it doesn't work, so we're gonna have to definitely create like a path upwards, because these boxes are just too big to traverse over. All right, so what we can do instead is that we can basically just select this whole thing and just move it down. But you're gonna see that we're also gonna have to move this down as well along with it. So what we can do instead is that maybe we can just move it back a little, something like that. And what that's gonna allow us to do is that we can I'm just gonna have to move it up slightly just to cover that area, just to make sure it doesn't look bad. And now what we can do is that what it's gonna allow us to do is that we can just essentially copy over one of these assets and just hold Alt and copy it like that. And what we can do essentially is that we can create a stair sort of thing, like basically multiple levels over which we can just jump over. So just place this somewhere right here. Okay, move it up slightly, something like that. And then essentially our player is going to jump over this first and then jump over the other one, which should work just fine. Make sure everything is flush and none of the empty edges are visible. And we can essentially just copy over both of these. Hold Alt and copy them like that and just move them up like this. And then just place them properly. Select both of them again. And just move them in this axis and then in the Y axis. Something like this. We can probably select this one now, and then we can tweak them individually as well, because obviously both of them are not going to fit perfectly. So just place this one like, you know, somewhere around here. Move it up. Sorry, scale it up, my bad. And then move it here. Scale it up in this axis as well, and then also move it here as well. So that would be one of the boxes. I really hope we can traverse over this. Hopefully we will be able to. And then the second one is going to be similar. We're just going to have to sort of move this up slightly, something like that. And again, it's all a matter of scaling and moving and rotating. Not really rotating in this case, but yeah. Scale it up just like that, and it should be good. I think so, but again, we're not going to know unless we try it out. And also another thing that you can do if you want to, like, you know, play your game over and over again and try out this specific area, but you don't want to, you know, travel all the way from here, is that simply you can just drag your player start to a closer place, just like that, and just move it down slightly, something like that. I'm just going to play the game, and we can sort of just go from here, jump over this area, perfect, jump over this area, jump over this block, that works, and then finally jump over this block, that works as well. Perfect. So that's how we can sort of get on this upper level, and obviously this upper level is pretty empty. You can just fall over the edge, which you don't want. So we're gonna be fixing that next, but you know, we at least have like a basic outline of where we want the character to be, and this is how you sort of build out the level. It is going to be slightly, you know, overwhelming if you're a beginner, and also, you know, slightly hectic as well, slightly like, you know, repetitive. But yeah, just be sure to save everything, by the way, and then we can just move forward with just the world building process. So for that, I'm going to be selecting a couple of these assets, something like that. press Alt and hold and just move them up. And now we have sort of a wall thing which we can just place on the upper level as well, something like that. And just move it right here, something like that, and just move it down. And now what I want to do with these is that I want to actually scale them up, but in just this axis, and maybe a little bit in this axis as well, but I just don't want to mess anything up. So I'm just going to move it down like that. And so now we're going to have essentially this dead end right here, so at least the player can't, like, fall over the edge of the world. So yeah, that's just something we're trying to fix. Just move this ahead, something like that. You're gonna have to make individual tweaks, obviously, but we have at least a basic wall ready. And then we can copy over this. And we can also just duplicate, not duplicate, rotate this like that. And again, if you want to make sure that your two assets don't look exactly the same, what you can do is you can just scale them up in different axes. Something like that. Yeah. And even rotate them a little bit if you want. I'm going to turn off snapping. Just something like that should be good. So after this, what we can do is we can basically just take this whole line of rocks and again, just duplicate it like that. And just rotate it like that. Something like that should be good. And then we can just place it right here. Maybe one thing that we will do is maybe move them a little back, something like that. And then move them down so that they're flushed with the ground, something like that. And this empty area we're going to fill in, and because we obviously do want there to be like a path for the player to follow. So obviously we can't, just block it off with walls like that. So we're just going to be copying this asset and just like, filling in and making like a path kind of thing. Now here we're going to have to just move this right there and just place it down. Just, move it down a little down just so you can sort of make everything flow with each other. Slightly down, something like that. And if you can see, if you can see like these seams between two assets, the best way to fix this is just use foliage to just, cover up. So I can also like even copy these assets and just place them right there. Just anything that you can do which is gonna essentially just cover up some area, that is always good. Something like that should be a good place. Yeah, I think we're looking pretty decent. We might add foliage to this later on, but I think for now we should be good. I am gonna just add one more of these right here just to fill up this area as well. And again, just instead of moving it down, maybe just rotate it a little ahead. Something like that. Just something like that. And make sure to like block this area off as well. Duplicate one of these assets and just move them here. And just rotate it like that. Just move it up. Perfect. So I think we have a pretty good looking world so far. So the player just comes up from here. He's probably going to try going there, but he's not going to find a way. So he's going to go on the other side. Here he's going to find this dead end. And also I think there's an empty area right here. So we can just like, duplicate this asset and just paste it, put it there. Perfect. And then the player is probably going to go from this side here all the way ahead. All right, so after this, we can just go ahead and duplicate this once again. So essentially, we're just going to be taking, I want to take like these two assets just because these two are becoming like kind of repetitive. So I'm not going to be copying them again. So I'm just going to copy these two, rotate them like that. And your goal with this is, again, as I mentioned previously as well, your goal is with this is just to make sure that the assets are not like, the assets don't look repeated. So I just have to make sure that, you sort of blend them in a way that they don't like look that they're being used again and again. Something like that I think should be good. And then we can again just go ahead and continue this like that. But this time I'm going to be scaling them up like this as well, maybe. Rotate them slightly and then just move them ahead like that and move them up as well. Perfect. So player is going to start here, going to go all the way there, going to jump up from here, and then he's going to walk all the way, like move all the way here. Here he's probably going to encounter some enemies as well. And then finally from here, we are going to essentially just make like another obstacle. Instead, we're not going to make an obstacle. We're just going to be copying over the same one. Maybe just, I'm trying to see which one we should copy. Probably just these ones, honestly. Just these two. Actually not that one because that's pretty big. I'm just going to copy this one then. This is pretty easy. So I'm just going to be copying all of these assets. Select all of them, move them to make sure everything is selected. This is not selected, so that's why we were just checking. Everything is selected now. So now we can just press and hold Alt on my keyboard. And then I can just drag this like that. Again, we're going to have to rotate this. And I mean, obviously, our game, like for this course, the game that I'm making is like pretty small. In an actual game, if you've like played any game ever, you would know that this game is absolutely tiny, and you obviously would need, you know, a lot more, what do you call it, work in this. I am gonna be just duplicating this, not duplicating actually. I'm just gonna select the whole thing, just like select all the assets again, and this one as well, and just like push them down a little bit so that they're intersecting with the floor and not just, you know, floating in the ground, floating in the air. And it's right there. And then we can just copy these again and we can move them up like that. And probably just like place them somewhere like here. I think somewhere like there. And if what I'm doing right now doesn't make sense, just give me 1 second. I'm just gonna do it and then explain. Something like that. So what we're essentially doing is that this is gonna be one step and then the player is gonna go up. Maybe you can duplicate this box and just place it here as well, just for this platform as well. And after this, it's essentially gonna have this other level, this kind of stair kind of thing, so we can, you know, jump over it. I am gonna move my player start if I can find it. It's right there, player start. I'm just gonna be dragging it all the way, moving it all the way here. My bad. Just moving it like this. I'm placing it somewhere there, just so we can, you know, see if we can actually like traverse over these blocks. Perfect, that works. And that should also work. Yeah, that works. So these stairs work. Obviously we need to sort of have a whole like sort of level ahead of this. Not level, like you know, some ground over this, obviously. So for that, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna be duplicating one of these and just placing it somewhere like here. 1 sec. Somewhere like there should probably be nice. And then we can duplicate it once again and just rotate it slightly as well. And just place it here as well. Just so you know, we can cover all the missing places. And so this part is still uncovered. So what we can do is we can essentially copy over maybe this ground material. This ground, like, what do you call it? The asset. And just place it somewhere like there. But then we're gonna have to move it as well. And actually, never mind, it's not looking good. So we're gonna have to find another solution. Another solution of this could just be let's copying this as well, and maybe scaling it up a little bit. Again, as I mentioned previously, all this is the only thing that you need to do on this is just trial and error. And again, I think this does blend in pretty well. If I just move this slightly up, it should be good to go. Perfect. So I think we are looking pretty good now. Just to make sure that it actually looks good in the game, I am gonna go ahead and jump over this area. So you can jump over this, jump over that again, and you can see that it looks pretty good and pretty seamless. And here somewhere like maybe even like somewhere here we can have our spaceship. So I'm just gonna select this, duplicate this again, and basically just rotate it like this, something like that. and then just place it right here so that we can sort of just, make it blend in and does not have that, uh, does not have the empty side visible. Got it. So it's like this, and we can obviously duplicate this on the other side as well. And this should be good. Perfect. Maybe move it up even. And we're gonna have to cover this side as well. We're gonna do that in just a bit. But for now, what we can do is we can just copy all of these, or maybe just copy both of these for now, and just place them. Actually, change the axis to the global axis and just duplicate them and place them right there, just so we can have like a continued sort of place where the character can walk, something like that. And ahead of this, maybe we can just add our spaceship, and it's going to be visible, so it's going to look nice, hopefully. Place it up, place it somewhere like there. And so ahead of this, we can just have at the end of the game, and we're just gonna have the U1 text. And we are gonna be making tweaks to this later on, but for now, I think we should be good. Let's just roam around the level once just to make sure everything looks fine. So this whole place is fine. This is elevated for some reason, like this rock. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drag this down, something like that. And I hope we don't break anything. Yeah. Once again, just making sure that the level looks nice. This is something you want to do like periodically. Just make sure, just roam around your level, make sure everything is fine. And oftentimes you're going to find mistakes which you didn't account for while you were developing the game. So it's very important to sort of just, keep playing your game as well. And just to make sure that it feels nice to play. Just like that. This part is fine as well. What about this part? And also it's super fun to play this game as well. Like, the like the movement mechanics and like, the sprint mechanics and all that stuff. It's very nice. Oops, my bad, I fell down. Let's try to jump from here. We can't jump from here, so I think we're gonna have to jump from the other side. Like this. Perfect. And let's go and check that side as well. One problem that we do have right now is that we don't have any collision for the river or the sea or the ocean, whatever this is. Actually, we do for some part, but I think for some other part we probably won't. And the problem right now is that we're actually on top of the water, which is not something we want. So to fix that, what we can do is we can just select the water, and then we can go down here, and in the details panel we can just search for collision. And if you search for collision, like I haven't even completed the sentence, and you're gonna see collision presets. So what you can do is you can just, instead of block all, what you can do is you can just do no collision. And then what you're going to see is that if we play the game again, it's just not going to have any collisions. It's as simple as that. Let's just go into the water and just make sure. Yeah, you can see that we can also go inside the water, which looks pretty nice. And obviously the ocean is pretty small. The whole sea is pretty small. So what we're going to do is that we're going to basically just select all of these. Select all 3 layers. And all these planes and all this stuff, like just the whole ocean. And what we can do is we can just basically zoom out and then just select the scale tool and just scale it up in the X and Y axis only, not the other ones. And oops, my bad, if I go closer, you're gonna see that we have a bunch of water on this side, which looks pretty nice. And we're not going to be extending this further. You could if you want, but I'm just not going to do this. And you can see on that side, we don't really care what we have because it's not going to be visible. All we care about is that if our player just looks at this side, you can see that we can see a proper ocean, right? Ideally, on that side, you can see that we have like basically nothing. Ideally, you would want to have like, some mountain elements in the background, but we're not going to be working on like that stuff. That's just like, extra stuff that you could add to your game. But I think for now we should be pretty good because most of our gameplay is going to be on this side anyway. So we don't want to like, spend time on things that are not even going to be, that are not going to make that much of a difference to the gameplay. Plus I'm trying to keep this tutorial very beginner friendly as well. So I'm going to remove all the unnecessary, elements. And you can see like from this angle, it looks fine. Like, it's not that bad either. All right. So I think we're pretty much done with the world building process. We have a pretty good looking world, which we can sort of make our game on. Now let's go ahead and get started with the actual programming part of this course.